Hello and welcome to A Piece of String, the show that brings together comedians and scientific minds to ask and maybe answer the biggest of all questions ever. I'm Matthew Shribman, I'm a chemist and biophysicist by training, and with me today are Josie Peters, an astrophysicist.
Hello.
Sophie Ward, a biomedic and neuroscientist.
Hello.
And James Wells, an engineer.
Hello.
Each of us will ask a question to which one of us secretly knows the answer, and points will be allocated on a tyro arbitrary basis by our producer, Sam Lee. The winner will get this freshly peeled banana peel that I am holding. Sophie, what's your question for us today?
My question today, Matt, is what would Nellie the elephant have packed in her trunk before she went off to the circus?
Is this just to me? Or is it open to the floor?
I'm asking to everyone.
It opens to the
I'm
floor.
sorry, Matt. Yeah, it's to everyone.
So, trunk, right? Are we going American on this?
Wait, but in the song, then is it a trunk like a car?
But isn't her trunk her trunk?
Oh well, hang on, no, go then. The trunk of a car.
Well, no. I mean, I don't know if we should go that way. Does Nelly have a car? Can Nelly drive?
I hope she can drive. Like, see the world.
Can we run through the options one by one? Can we start with?
Let's start with if it's a suitcase. Let's keep it
Okay,
British.
Yeah.
What do elephants need? Josie,
Water.
I'm looking at you.
Water, probably. I don't know. What do they eat?
Fair play, yeah, water.
Do they eat grass?
They don't actually eat peanuts, do they? Or is that a myth?
They eat lots.
Peanuts are so small. Like, if you're going to feed an elephant something like...
Also, imagine trying to de-shell it. I imagine they're quite fussy.
No,
so
but they
want
do
to
that
de-shell
themselves, don't they? Isn't that like a trick that you give an elephant?
It. Oh, what, the peanuts?
A peanut in the
peanuts.
Yeah. You give it a monkey nut, and
themselves.
then it'll go, and then the shell will just come out, and they would have eaten the peanut.
They're extremely dexterous, yeah. Have you ever seen an elephant paint?
I have actually.
yes.
I have seen that, yeah.
So don't tell us.
Yeah.
We already know.
We're waiting
Sit down,
to see.
Matthew Shribman. We've seen that before.
Okay, but elephants can do. I mean, that's quite an artistic thing that elephants can do because they can actually, reimagine the scene in front of them. It's been shown, but also the empathetic thing that elephants do is, or is it empathic? How do you say that word?
Oh,
Basically, they'll look after like wounded other animals. Like if they find a wounded human, then you'll get elephants that just kind of stand guard over it.
oh.
Have you heard this one? Where basically they looked at the brain of an elephant as it was looking at various different things. And they realised that the same bit that lights up when we see something sort of cute lights up in elephants when they see humans.
I did hear
I
that,
heard
and I
that
checked
too,
it out,
yeah.
and it isn't.
That's
true.
true.
No.
No,
It
it
isn't.
must be true. Come on, don't.
I'm sorry,
don't
James.
do
I
that to me.
checked the one out. I'm
What
pretty sure
happened?
that study was never done, but it's one of those really cool rumours that got perpetuated over the internet.
Okay.
Blast.
Wait, so Nellie might maybe if Nellie's artistic, maybe she'd pack some watercolours, some paintbrushes. Maybe that's what would be in her trunkety trunk.
Maybe she'd pack photos of her family as well, because don't elephants get a bit sad?
No, but they've
So what is
got,
it when a baby elephant gets upset, it throws itself in the mud?
they've got like really good memories, right? So presumably they would never forget anything that they needed. So like whatever they packed, it would be unbelievably good packing.
Where is she packing to go? Oh, she's going to the circus, isn't she? But what circus?
What's her performing task? Like what's she ride a unicycle?
Trapeze or...
Mm.
Is it trapeze?
I imagine so.
Don't they usually like balance on top of a little plinth with a ball in the air? Or is that a seal?
Some grey animal, some vague grey animal.
Definitely need water if it's still.
They're not. They're not. They wouldn't be really very happy, would they? I mean, I know that obviously there's all this evidence about how unhappy like aquatic mammals get when they're used for performing, and they don't live as long and have like collapsed dorsal fins as well, don't they? But like elephants, do you reckon they enjoy it a bit more, like being part of a show? My guess is no.
I guess it's not so much the enjoyment of the show, it's the enjoyment of the environment that they're having to live in. They might love the show life and then get back to the dressing room and be like, ugh, take me back to the savannah.
They'd certainly be put to task, wouldn't they? Over
That
their
was-
performance.
That was I very bad pun.
I'm sure that's not the last we'll hear of that. It's not even really a pun, is it? Elephants have got big ears.
Oh.
Isn't it strange that between us we know a surprisingly small amount about elephants, even though they're like one of the most intelligent animals on the planet?
Yeah.
What are we doing? This
I
is
don't know.
like a social problem, isn't it? I just think we need to get closer to these other animals that are really, really intelligent, because the more that we understand them, the more that I think it helps humans relate to nature, and then the better we can protect our planet. Yeah, does anyone know much about the ivory trade? Like why it's done?
There's been some recent rulings, haven't there, in, remember where now, where it's punishable life imprisonment if you're caught with any ivory at all.
Good. Yeah.
Well, even
Even
ivory, yeah, exactly. I was just going to say, yeah, even old ivory that was sold kind of
apparently
legally
It's
at the
just
time.
like, get rid of it all. It's like an amnesty.
So why do people want ivory? It's all based on pseudoscience, right? So there's people who think that it cures cancer and stuff, right?
Pianos.
Yeah.
Pianos.
It's rare.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's just like, why does anyone want anything so they can show off about the fact they've got it? Like, look at me.
It must be like a hangover, right? A hangover from back in the day when it's like, I've been all the way here and check this out. I got this with my own bare hands.
Yeah, I don't know. All the market's being driven by China now, isn't it? They're the ones who want all the ivory.
Is it?
I think so. Yeah, that's where most of it gets sold. But I don't actually know why it is that they want it. I thought it was some kind of, a lot of it was sort of like pseudo medical rubbish. Oh, I learned something really cool about Chinese like ancient medicine, because obviously, you know, a lot of it is quite pseudosciencey. But back when we were really struggling with malaria, we only had about 3 or so medicines for it, and they were all pretty crappy. And the Chinese government basically mobilized the army, and they got them to go through every single traditional cure that had ever been proposed for malaria, just to check if there was any positive effects at all. And they found somewhere like this in some niche old journal or something, not a journal, like some
Reference book.
a reference book. Yeah. So they found in some reference book this plant, and they experimented with it, and they found that it had this tiny positive effect against malaria, and they managed to find the single chemical. I can't remember what the name of it is, and that's now the single most effective frontline treatment we have against malaria.
One of the cool malaria things, isn't it? If quinine and like Marmite also help protect you against malaria. Isn't that true?
Quinine is one from trees, isn't it?
Yeah, so you could have a gin and tonic and some twiglets and be like,
I think that's how it works.
good to go.
Don't worry, guys.
So it just goes to show there's like so much stuff hidden in plants that we may have even known about in the past and we've forgotten about, that we need to, you know, investigate in order to find cures, because we only know about like 10% of the plants in the world or so. And like most of our medical cures come from plants. Got to protect the old rainforest.
Yeah, it's like foxgloves, because they were being taken as like a natural remedy, and then for years and years and years, and then we discovered, oh wait, we can actually get this medicine called digitalis from it, which is used to treat heart problems. So exactly, sometimes these, what we think would have been pseudoscience from the old days, actually has some legit meaning, I think.
Just to confirm, though, it is pseudoscience that ivory can do anything medically beneficial for anyone.
So does who knows what Nelly packed? Reveal yourself.
Yeah, I did a little bit of research on what Nelly might have packed in her trunk. Not the easiest question to answer. Be it that it doesn't really relate to science or reality at all.
Oh, bit of shade there, bit of shade. It's all right, I don't mind.
But here's what I've got. So rather than looking at what I decided to just talk about trunks, because trunks are pretty cool anyway. So like a trunk is basically it's called a hydrostat, right? Which means that it's this big wobbly thing with no bones in it at all, and it's just like a big snake essentially on an elephant's face. Like they can move it in almost any direction. 40,000 muscles in there. The trunk itself is basically all in all, it's like an upper lip and the 2 nostrils. So, because obviously they've got the lower lip at the bottom of the mouth, but essentially the trunk is like their upper lip. And at the end of it, you've got 1 or 2 fingers, depending on the breed of elephant. And when they've got 2 fingers, they're literally dexterous enough to select a single blade of grass from the ground and pluck it and admire it, or whatever the elephant might do with it. Other cool things about trunks, it's basically a snorkel, which...
Of course.
Yeah, which makes an elephant one of the sneakiest animals on the amphibious approach on the battlefield. It's also a trunk is the sense of smell that an elephant has from its trunk is 4 times more sensitive than a bloodhound, which is pretty cool. But it's not as sensitive as a horse. I mean, you all know about horses, how sensitive they are with smells, right?
No.
Basically, it would be better at airports if you know, when they're looking for drugs, if they use horses, security horses. Because you can train them on loads of different smells. You can only really train like a dog on 1 smell at a time. Whereas with a horse, you can train them on loads and they got much more sensitive smell. Other thing. Oh, there's so much cool stuff about a trunk. Sorry, there's quite a lot in here. When elephants drink water, they suck it up their trunk and then they squirt it back into their mouths. Even though theoretically they could just like suck it all the way down. I guess that would go to their lungs. Anyway, they're good at sensing vibrations, so they can sense earthquakes or like, other herds of elephants approaching from like a way away. And one of the most interesting things that I learned about it was that these like trunks are kind of left or right-handed. So elephants have a tendency to pick things up in a kind of left curling direction or right curling direction, depending on the way their brain is wired. And there's a slight tendency towards right-handedness as well. One more fact about, and I say fact in inverted commas, about elephant trunks is that it's claimed that an elephant trunk is the most versatile appendage on the planet. Discuss.
What's an appendage?
Well, that's what I thought, An appendage is like a thing attached to the body, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if you just consider everything from your neck down to be like an appendage, it's pretty versatile, isn't it?
No, I still think a trunk's more versatile.
Yeah, because a trunk can do the thing of sucking up and picking stuff up.
God,
Whereas you can't suck
better,
things through your fingers, can you?
So a human would be better if it was like a head and then underneath that was just a trunk.
I think, depends what you mean by better.
What if you need to cut something with scissors?
Trunk's got 2 little fingers on the end. You just jump and cut. I think an appendage is something you could do without, actually. I think that's basically the point. You could live without it.
Oh, okay.
So trunk
Why is that
probably
why
does
the
win.
appendix is called the appendix? It sounds like appendage because you can live without it.
Maybe that's the
because it's
append.
appended onto the end of what's necessary.
Oh, like an appendix in a scientific journal.
Moving on.
Thanks, Matt. You've definitely not answered my question.
Right, I've got a question. What's the best milk to have on your Cheerios?
Full fat.
Chocolate.
I couldn't think of milk. My head just went straight to gravy.
What?
Well, maybe that's the answer. Maybe we're done. There are lots of different kinds of milk out there, right? There are lots of different kinds of milk. What about platypus milk?
What?
Is that the pink milk? No, it's hippos have pink milk, don't they?
Hippos have pink milk.
Yeah, I think so.
Why is it pink? Has something gone wrong?
I know they sweat sun cream.
Yes, I've heard that one.
Wait, why aren't we using hippo sweat?
on our Cheerios.
Yeah, hippos' milk is bright pink because of this like acid they secrete basically. So yeah, bright pink.
Delicious.
Wow.
Really? Do they eat pink foods as well? Are they like flamingos? Or
I don't think so. I think it's to do with more of a chemical reaction.
But that's one of the fundamental laws of the universe is that pink in equals pink out, right? Pink can neither be created nor destroyed. So surely to get pink milk, there must be some pink going into the hippo.
Are they already a bit pink hippos though, aren't they? Like the underside of a hippo.
And they just gradually run out of that, I guess, as they age and they
Just slightly
secrete
fade.
more milk. Yeah. Okay, now we're clear.
When you said pink cannot be created or destroyed, all I could think of was the singer Pink. Like someone just starts to be like, "Stop singing!" She's like, "Nice try, you forgot the fundamental law."
That's funny. My mind.
So what? I'm still a rock star. You can't kill me 'cause I'm pink.
Just taking it roundly back to platypus milk.
Yeah, sorry.
Tell us about that, someone other than me.
Didn't even think that about platypus milk.
I sort of asked this question partly on the basis of platypus milk. It's the one that they sweat. They sweat it, and the babies just like lick at their skin. Because platypus, they're sort of are they a mammal? Are they a bird?
Why does all the other animals seem to sweat useful things and we just sweat? Like if a hippo sweats sun cream and a platypus sweats milk, what are we doing?
When we say best milk for the Cheerios, do we mean like it's going to complement the taste of the Cheerio grain?
What cereals are in Cheerios? Because it's a bit of a mix, right?
There's 5 grains.
It is 5 grains.
Tell us the 5 grains, Josie.
Well, it's wheat, barley, oat, rice, and corn with some honey.
Wait, rice or rye?
Rice.
Really? Yeah. Intriguing.
Josie just knew that off the top of her head. Like, I'm very impressed.
Yeah, that's the cereal facts. That's my other hidden persona.
Have you heard this thing about how wheat domesticated us instead of us domesticating wheat?
Hey? Is this from that Sapiens book?
Yeah.
Is it in there?
Yeah.
I haven't read it, but I've seen it on many a bookshelf.
Yeah, just the idea that basically, like, you know, we took control of wheat thinking it would make our lives better, but actually it made our lives a lot worse, and we had to work all year to like look after the wheat, get it watered, move the little rocks away, plough the fields and so on. And ultimately wheat is the big winner because it just gets to live everywhere and everyone looks after it. And we're basically, you know, its pet.
Never thought about that, about crops controlling us. People always say that your cat controls you as well, don't they? But I think that's just a myth pervaded by dog people.
Okay, so when we say best then, are we saying best milk as in it'll make the Cheerios go the least soggy?
Oat milk?
Condensed
I don't like the
milk.
idea
I like
of
oat
the
milk.
poor oat being submerged in its own milk and then being consumed. That's brutal.
Mummy?
I never even thought about these different kinds of milk. What, like condensed milk, evaporated milk, yogurt? Is yogurt a type of milk? What is yogurt?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever made yogurt?
By accident. Yeah.
This is really disgusting, but
Is
you
it
can make
disgusting?
you can make yogurt from loads of different stuff. And but essentially you get a bowl of milk and you get a piece of live yogurt or any sort of bacteria, and this is where we're going with this. And overnight, in the right conditions, it will turn all of the bowl of milk into yogurt. That's sort of how it works. But I read about a year ago that this lady decided to make yogurt from a swab of her area.
Oh, la,
And
la.
so she basically made vagina yogurt.
I'm too hungover for this conversation.
It's absolutely horrible. I'm really sorry about that.
You can do a similar thing with sourdough, right? You can make sourdough from your own yeast.
Your own yeast.
Well, one's own yeast, not my yeast. Mine's private.
You've got a special yeast.
You've got a password on your yeast.
Anyway, so when I asked this question, I was actually more sort of thinking about different kinds. Like, I mean, we've stayed pretty narrowly down cow's milk. I was thinking of like different kinds of milk.
Platypus milk.
Like, this is, you know, that's why I was driving the platypus angle. I wanted to see which other kind of milks came out of the works.
Is coconut milk actually milk?
What
is
defines
milk?
a milk? Is a milk? Because then what is not milk? So apparently there's a new craze for peanut milk that's coming around, and you can make your own peanut milk by getting a load of peanuts, soaking them in water, and then the water gradually goes creamy, and then you can sort of squeeze all your nuts and get the.
Manually, one by one.
Well, it depends how much time you've got.
How long will it be until there's a profession which is peanut squeezer?
And
Probably never.
Bring this back to the different kinds of milk.
I think, have you researched about some different kinds of milk, Matt?
I haven't. I asked the question.
Oh, okay.
That was my question. I was just wondering.
who's been speaking to the milkman?
Has anyone prepared a question? Prepared an answer for this?
I have indeed. It is me.
Oh, cool.
So, for like, what is the actual best milk to have on your Cheerios? So I wondered if you meant that Cheerios specifically or any type of cereal at all. There's no hard scientific facts that I could find, but there seems to be a general consensus that whole fat milk makes Cheerios taste the best.
Okay, good to know. Thanks.
And there may even be a whole avenue of pairing cereals with different milks. Like, apparently Cocoa Pops go with soy, and Frosties and coconut milk, you're onto a real winner there. So that's another way to go about your milks. But apparently Cheerios, yes, whole fat cow's milk is the tastiest. But what might be the best milk overall to eat? I was trying to have a look at what that might be. It turns out that cow's milk is the most nutritious naturally. Like all of the nut milks you can get, that they're fortified with nice vitamins and minerals and things like that. But cow's milk contains many different vitamins such as B2 and B12 and something called thiamine. I'm not really sure what that is. But it contains, if you have 250 mils of milk, that's more protein than a hard-boiled egg. Who'd have thunk it? I would have thought there'd have been more in a hard-boiled egg. But no, 250 mils of cow's milk. And if you want more, I found this not all of this, but some of this from milkfats.info, which also had a tab which said cheese extension, which I've not yet clicked, but I might look at later.
Is it an extension for Chrome?
Yeah.
One can only hope.
I feel a little bit betrayed that now I realise why you knew all the Cheerio grains off by heart.
Yeah, I'm unfortunately, yeah, I don't have a secret PhD in Cheerios.
Cheeriology.
Cheeriology. So yeah, tasty Cheerios, whole fat milk. Boom.
And now for the mystery midsection. Just before we started the show, I gave everyone the following question.
If you were to succuss a human being, what would that mean?
I then asked everyone to write down a fictional but reasonable sounding answer, and I will now read out all of those answers with the real answer mixed in. Everyone will then get the chance to decide which answer they think is right. To succuss a human being is to gently cradle them until they fall asleep. To succuss a human being is to chop off their nose. To succuss a human being is to lay a hand on top of their skin and tap your hand sharply with 2 fingers to hear what they sound like on the inside. To succuss a human being is to shake them up and down vigorously to see if they contain any fluid or air. Succuss is the word from which the common slang cuss originates. It means to insult. What do you think, y'all?
Chop off that nose. How often does that need to be done? When does that really sort of, what needs to happen now is a nose chop?
I don't know if it's like an old, like maybe like an old age punishment thing, like chopping off hands. You sniffed my wife. Maybe, I don't know. How much is there of a nose to chop? Like you've obviously got the.
Oh right, yeah. You've got, there's
Just
not a
chop
lot
the end,
that is
like-
actually bone. It's just the very top, isn't it? Very
Yeah,
top's
exactly.
Just bone there. There's people that have had silver noses, aren't there?
Oh, yes. There was an astronomer called Tycho Brahe who had a bronze nose. I think it was bronze. Yes, he collected a lot of data on where the planets were, and then Kepler then used it to figure out laws of motion.
Legend. Absolute legend.
Why did he have a bronze nose? He just
think
wanted one.
I think he lost it in a duel.
A duel.
A duel.
Okay, so it sounds like everyone's going for to chop off a nose.
Well, I quite like the finger tap one or the shaking up and down one.
I mean, I'd encourage the nose chopping one myself.
Oh, what about a nice little cradle?
It sounds lovely, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know. I
the
think
word doesn't
succuss.
sound like-
Yeah,
it
I think
sounds too
succuss
aggressive.
sounds a bit like a
Just
succuss. Like
yeah. Oh no, don't want that. But do you know what it is yet? No, still don't want it.
I thought it sounded like a bit like succumb. You kind of relax, you succumb to things.
yeah.
Should we have some little answers?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Go on, Josie. What do you think?
All right, I reckon purely because of the spelling that it ends in 2 S's that it is cuss, like an insult.
Okay, cool. Yeah, Sophie.
I'm tempted by the insult cuss one, but I think I'm going to go for the finger tap to see what they sound like inside.
James.
I'm also going to go for the finger tap. Yeah, 2-finger tap.
Okay, cool. Well, you'll all be glad to know that I won.
Oh, for goodness sake!
Because the finger tap one is the fake one. Because it's called to percuss, which is the medical thing where you tap around on someone's body to feel different things. And if you try it on your own belly, you can feel that or you can hear that your liver sounds different
Let's
to
try
your
it.
stomach and so on.
Yeah.
Entirely different. But yeah, that's like standard medical practice. But anyway, no, the actual answer. Oh no, who went for the cuss? Josie. Yeah, that was James's.
Was
James
it?
got a cheeky point there.
Yeah.
But the actual thing, to succuss a human being, which is something you wouldn't actually ever really probably do to a human, because it's just a word that means to succuss any object, is to shake it up and down vigorously to see if it contains any fluid or air.
So close to picking that one as well. But I didn't. I also like, Matt, you trying to make people not go for the nose one by being like, I think we should go for the nose one so people think it was yours when it was mine.
Sorry, so devious.
Oh.
So devious. Josie, what's your question for us today?
What would happen if we weren't ticklish?
Is
Oh, I
anyone
like
here not
that.
ticklish? Do we have a subject?
No, I'm definitely ticklish.
Really ticklish.
Yeah, fairly ticklish, average.
But people are ticklish in different places, right? Some people are more tickly underarms. Some people have tickly stomachs.
What's the function of it? Why do we do it?
Is it a defense? Because people don't like being tickled, even though you're laughing.
Well, it's like,
you kind of lash out at people, don't you, when they tickle you?
I feel like you're ticklish on sensitive areas, right? So it's like if your sensitive area is being touched, like maybe like under your neck, like there's obviously like you've got your jugular there, that's really important. Like, so you might be like, like
Is there
don't
like a
tickle me there.
non-important bit that is ticklish?
Back of the knee.
Ticklish bum, anyone?
That's
Ticklish bum. Yeah.
What's the name of the back of the knee? Is it called the anti-knee?
Anthony, we call him Ant for short.
Apparently it's called a knee pit.
The pit of your knee, like an armpit.
Anti-knee equals knee pit in maths is what you'd write, I think.
So wait, so if we weren't ticklish, it would be a lot harder to wind someone up, wouldn't it?
True.
That's a go-to to like mug someone off, be like, oh, I'm going to tickle you.
But even though you don't like it, it is kind of fun. A bit like, ooh, don't tickle me again because I'll hit you.
So fun. So fun.
Because with laughing, there's a bit of a surprise thing, isn't it? And it's like a shock for surprising that's your reaction. I remember reading something that basically took a survey in a mall somewhere in America, and they looked at when people laughed. So as people were walking by, it's like, what are you laughing at? And they'd note it down because they'd hear the conversation on the way in. And they realized 80% of the time it wasn't anything funny at all. It was like, right, see you next week. And then people just go, ha ha, see you next week. And after I read that, I was like, this happens all the time. And it feels really awkward. So I'm like, I don't listen to what I've just said because it will ruin your life.
No, it is interesting though, because laughter is such a social mechanism. Like Professor Sophie Scott, who did like the Christmas lectures in 2017 last year, and she does a lot about like the importance of like laughter and non-verbal communication. And yeah, it's a lot of it is there just kind of ease social interaction and like let things flow through.
It's well because you can have laughter which is like it's not your genuine laughter, but you're laughing because you're like, I like this person, please be my friend. When you go, it's not my real laugh, but it's that effort of trying to be like social.
It is effort, isn't it?
Yeah, of being that you want to laugh at that person because you think they're great, but they didn't actually make you laugh.
It's more of a complaint, really. It's like a gentle complaint. Be a bit funnier.
Is that what your laughter always is, James? Is it always you complaining?
Not always.
James is very dissatisfied with the surroundings.
What's one of the worst times you've been tickled?
I mean, yeah, this is one of the, it's a really traumatic experience when I was younger. I just got wrapped in like a rug so I couldn't move at all. And then my brother and sister were tickling my feet. And honestly, it was so traumatic. I still like have nightmares about it now. It still comes back.
That is horrible though. Siblings are horrible sometimes. Like,
anyone else any traumatic tickling experiences?
So often siblings, right? When you're young, not always, but often. And my brother used to tickle me, and then he's an older brother, and he put his knees on my biceps, so my arms are pinned down, and then he'd flick my forehead. It's really painful.
It's not okay, is it?
Yeah. Did you find the way out of that? Because I used to get stuck in that position as well, like being pinned down. Did you do the old like loop your legs over, catch the shoulders with your feet, then pull them back?
Oh, clever.
Yeah, it's a classic.
I did not have.
When I learned that, they were like, "Hang on a minute, she's learned evolution in motion right there."
What happens if you get tickled too much? Do you like, wet yourself? Or
Yeah,
something?
definitely. Yeah.
Is that like an evolutionary thing as well? Do you reckon if you were tickled in the wild, then be like, stop tickling me, and then you just like weed everywhere, and then be like, oh, okay, fine, I'll leave you alone. I don't want to eat you anymore.
Would tickling happen in the wild though? Like, would tickling actually happen in any sort of dangerous situation? Like, would you ever be actually at risk when you're being tickled? Like, it's a playful thing, isn't it? Like, it's kind of a show of dominance, but a playful show of dominance.
True, yeah, it is a strength, isn't it?
Can you imagine the relief if you were just about to be mauled by a bear and it just started tickling you?
You want to research an answer to this?
I did a little bit of research into this. Right, so my first sort of thought was, is it just us as humans, or do other animals laugh and get tickled and all that sort of stuff? And apparently rats, you give them a little tickle, and not a lot happens, but it looks like they're really enjoying it and they come back for more. And so I thought, this is strange. Like, why are they not making any noise? It looks like they're making some noise. It turns out a lot of their noise that they make is above 50 kilohertz. So humans just don't hear it. So they put a little transducer that could pick up those frequencies. And it turns out that you can actually hear rats laughing. Now, I mean, let's play that clip now. So that's that. So what they've done is they've taken their over 50 kilohertz stuff and put it down into our range so we can roughly replicate what it is. But, it doesn't really sound like that. So that's that. Apparently dolphins, dogs, meerkats, penguins, they can all laugh, show abilities to laugh. So that's kind of cool. So there's two types of being tickled. Stanley Hall and Arthur Allen back in 1897 discovered 2 things. Now, if you, all of you around the table, just put your arm out like this and just gently tickle the surface there. That is,
lovely.
That is nismesis.
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 That's the good one.
So that's just the real, like, supposedly this comes from like insects crawling up your skin, ants in your pants, all that sort of stuff, and it's a defense mechanism.
Formicophilia, that's called, right? If
Is
you
it?
enjoy, if you enjoy that sensation.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or ants in your pants, or
Both, and them crawling all over your skin. Formicophilia. I think, I mean, I know it comes from ants because it's formic, but I think the word means, any insects crawling all over you, you enjoy it a little bit too much. Sorry, James, for interrupting your answer.
Formic like formic
I'll
acid.
tie into something a bit later. That's no worries. Peter Benchley's shark. That's got an exclamation mark on it. He wrote that you can actually completely hypnotize a great white shark by tickling its nozzle. Its nozzle? Its nozzle? It definitely doesn't have a nozzle, does it? What do I mean muzzle?
No, I think you mean nozzle.
no?
The old shark nozzle. Well, we'll go with that. On its
Put a
nozzle.
different nozzle on the shark when you want to hoover the corners.
So that's good. So there's another one called gargalesis. Now, look directly in the eye of the person like this, but on the other side. This is the podcast members. Right. On 3, you must do a deep rib tickle. 1, 2, 3.
So unpleasant.
It's so unpleasant, is it? Right. So that's gargalesis, which is, the one that causes you to laugh. Now, if we just do a little simple experiment, right? So, Sophie, you'll do the tickling this time, and so will I.
Okay.
But you two, just stay still, but stay near your mic. Just stay near your mic, right? And we'll go on
is gonna be
3.
horrendous.
Wait. So, we'll do this. So, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Now, that was kind of interesting. That didn't really prove what I thought it would. That's a bit of a shame. But
Is it because we were ready for it?
so there's this exactly what Sophie was saying before. There's this idea that the anticipation of not knowing when it's going to arrive is what is so terrible about it. And it's like you react. And supposedly it's a Pavlovian response. And people will actually start to giggle as if they're being tickled 2 to 3 seconds before it happens, out of the anticipation of it. Now, we didn't really see
I've
that,
done
but
that before.
it's definitely happened, right?
Yeah.
Anecdotally, it definitely happens. So there's that. So there's the 2 types of tickling. So one theory as to why this happens is that between siblings, essentially this is a non-violent and non-damaging way of becoming very good at reacting to threats and attacks. So what this is, I love this explanation. I hope it's true because it's just brilliant. So what you get when you tickle someone is an intense amount of pleasure because you see on the person you're tickling's face a big smile and you hear laughter. And you're so used to having positive feedback from that it is enjoyable to tickle people. I think most people can relate to that. It's a bit of fun. And what's so good about this? So the mechanism is the person doing the tickling wants to do it. The person that's being tickled doesn't want it to happen. So it's like being attacked, but they're reinforcing more attack, just like an actual attack would be, but without enforcing any damage on the person.
So they can learn to defend themselves.
So they can learn to defend themselves.
That is really interesting.
So I think we basically covered it.
Wow.
So if we
So-
weren't ticklish,
Then
we
none of
wouldn't
that.
know how to defend ourselves.
So the conclusion would be we'd be naturally worse at combat and wrestling. A lot of people would be quite relieved, I think, to never have been tickled again. And some fetishists would be very bored indeed.
James, have you got a question for us?
Yes, I do have a question that I'd like to ask. So I've read that as humans, we absorb information through our brains, through our senses. And when multiple of these senses corroborate, we think something's real. That's the way we tell. But how different is that perception compared with what reality is?
That's so weird. I was literally having a conversation about this in the car yesterday.
What? Go on.
So what did you
Pray tell.
figure out?
Well, they were trying to explain to me about how light goes in your eyes and that the light goes in upside down and your brain makes it go the right way round. But then that's not what real life is, because really everything's the right way up. But then how do you know that things are the right way up? It's just because all your senses are telling you that it is.
Did you get this from the Matthew Shribben Science of the Bath video that just came out about
No.
seeing things upside down?
This must literally just be all on our conscience.
No, Matt, she hasn't watched that video.
I don't follow you on Instagram and I don't watch your videos.
Absolute burn.
But Matt, what did you find in your video?
Oh
About
yeah, just
dinosaur
about that.
vision,
And
isn't
the
it?
cool
Yeah.
got it's about how we think that dinosaurs couldn't really see stuff that was moving very easily. Very good vision, like very good binocular vision often, but not very good at seeing things unless they were moving. And now our eyes have developed this thing where essentially our eyes are kind of jiggling around all the time, just a tiny little bit, so that everything is moving, and then our brains correct for this jiggle.
Have you ever watched someone looking out of a train window while the train's moving?
I love it. So cool, like how
That was
quickly
like-
their eyes are going. Because they have to have a focus point.
Yeah.
So obviously their focus point is a tree, but the tree's obviously then gone. So the eyes are like got that little jerky movement.
It's amazing because you don't. That was when I saw that for the first time. I mean, people have real epiphanies of varying nature. This was a massive one for me. I was like, that's happening on my eyes, isn't it? And I didn't know.
Have you ever then
weird.
felt it though yourself? Like sometimes if I'm like really like hungover on a train and I will
Like, when would that have happened recently?
I don't know. It's
gracious.
probably going to happen in a couple of hours, to be fair. But I you can either focus on the window or you can focus on what's through the window. And if you focus on the window, your eyes don't do that because you're focusing on something that's constantly there, maybe like a stain or something. But then when you focus on the trees, sometimes you can feel your eyes going and it's like, oh my God, like.
Because you've got those weird things with your vision as well, right? Where, you have visual maps of where you've seen something and your brain just updates the new stuff to save on power. I'm sure that's definitely a thing. Where so if you've been somewhere before, your brain is quite lazy. So from the corner of your eye, you might see something that isn't actually there. And then when you then actually really genuinely look at it, then it updates what is in your vision.
We see the world once as a child, the rest is just memory. Gluck, poet, legend.
Well, that's like when you're a child, everything's just like this blurry, confused mess. And that's why, people with like synesthesia who might see, there's different types of synesthesia, but people who like see numbers and letters having particularly assigned colours, it's thought that develops in childhood when there's all this overwhelming excess of information, central information, and so there becomes overlap because synesthesia literally means union of the senses.
Magenta, this is one of my favourite facts about perception, is that magenta is obviously not a real wavelength. It's the only one that is, we see it as a colour, but it's completely different to the reality, because the reality is that you're seeing two completely different wavelengths at either end of the spectrum. So our brain basically makes up for the fact that colours are in a spectrum in reality, but we put them into a circle. And so it ties together at where blue and red mix and we make magenta.
With these synesthesia, so when you see a number or a word, then you get maybe a colour or a smell or whatever it is. Does it work the other way around? So if you look at a painting and you go, wow, I can just see a whole equation in this painting.
No, I think it's more than just the way, because I know someone, like there's this guy, Joel Salinas, and he's like got this really cool like mirror touch synesthesia, which is a whole other thing to go on to, but that's basically when you see someone experience something and you feel what they're feeling just from looking at them. But he has also the synesthesia where he sees numbers and colours, and I think it's more that he wouldn't see red and think 4. He would see 4 and think red. And alongside that, also give it like a personality in his head. So I think that actually it's more like the numbers are being assigned a thing rather than, oh, like the sky's looking very 6 today. Like,
It's true. I've heard about that. Yeah, different numbers. Like some of them are oppressive and scary, and some of them are lighthearted and jolly.
I think he says like 3 is like a really like chilled out blue kind of.
It's basically what
individual.
LSD does, isn't it? You take LSD and it creates a synesthetic experience, apparently. So it just like links together all of your senses. So you like hear the things that you're seeing and you smell the things that you're hearing.
Asking if you had a difficult science or maths problem that you needed solving, and if you wanted to come to London and take LSD for a week and see if your problem got solved.
Intriguing. So has anyone put together an answer for this?
Yeah, I actually have. It gave me like a low-key existential on the train as I was researching it. Because as soon as you start thinking about perception and reality, it just becomes mind-blowing, doesn't it? Like you hear these things where it's like, oh, our reality is just everything that's in our visual field. Like, and what's behind you ceases to exist to you until you turn around and see it. Like, and yeah, it was just mind-blowing. But there's a few things I actually have come across where your senses screw up, like you can trick your senses. One of my favourite ones, and this is actually from a physics lecture I went to when I was like in school, is about wine. Has anyone heard this? Like if you get white wine and you dye it with flavourless red dye, people drink it and they say, oh, it tastes like red wine, even though it's, white wine. And this is tricked like actual legit wine tasters. So that's where, your senses are kind of what is the reality there? Like, it obviously should taste like white wine because that's what it's been made as. And there's also something that happened in the same lecture. I don't know if this is true because I've never tried it, but they said it was, and I'd like to try it. So if you're eating soft food, but you listen to a recording of you eating crunchy food, your jaw moves as if the soft food is crunchy. So you start thinking that it's crunchy because of the way your jaw is moving.
Doesn't it make people feel really sick as well? I've heard that, is that when you hear the crunch but you don't experience it, you feel really nauseous.
It's actually, I don't know, but it's a big problem for human health in general that so much of our food is liquid now. Like, so much of the original like diet that we evolved on was pretty hard to chew, right? So, and like, you know, but now even like a burger is essentially liquid meat almost, in like kind of quite thin membranes. You barely need to chew it. There's a really cool biologist called Paul Ehrlich. He's the president of conservation biology at Stanford. And he's just written a book called Jaws about this, and about how much of a problem it's causing to our own health, because there's lots of other knock-on health effects of us not having good food to chew.
Something else that was a big debate I used to have with my friend was the whole, is the blue that I see the same as the blue that you see? And the whole, you know, our brains are analysing these waves, these light waves that are reflecting off everything. But like, what if my blue is not your blue? What if my orange is not your orange? And I just find that so amazing. I read this really kind of poetic article about it, and then I just kind of wrote in my train haze, I just wrote, I wonder if your soulmate is someone who sees the same blue as you.
Oh.
That's nice.
The other thing I thought of, reality versus perception, hallucinations.
True.
You know, that's not reality, but that's something that we're perceiving is there, and there's loads.
I wonder, so with this I can't say it.
Synesthesia.
Synesthesia. Both of the things that are being swapped are learnt things, right? You learn what a colour is, and you learn what a number is. And so presumably it's a learnt problem. Like, some effect has caused this problem rather than it being an innate problem. And it took a very long time throughout human history to separate colour from objects. So to distill out the property of colour was actually a sort of a human invention, if you see what I mean. So you'd say, that's the colour of a sheep. That is the colour of a tree. And, you know, you wouldn't really know what colour you were talking about because obviously there's variance in those things. And it was only with the advent of dyes and paints and all this sort of stuff that the essence of what red is became a concept in the human mind. That's a very strange example of how our own intelligence as a species has evolved our perception.
I guess it depends on what your lifestyle or culture is like as well. So what is it? Inuits have 50 words for snow or something, right? And then there are also people who, I think, live in the jungle or rainforest or something like that, who can see a lot more shades of green because they need to be more.
Josie, have you seen my little video about shades of green of this tribe that you're referring to?
No, I genuinely haven't. I read this somewhere, I swear.
It's called Do We All See Colour Differently? Something like that. You should check it out. It's the Himba tribe. They actually don't live in the rainforest. But yeah, they have lots of different words for different shades of green. But they're not very good at recognizing the difference between blue and green because they don't really have a word for blue. So you can show them two different colors, which to us are very, very obviously blue and green, but to them are very much the same shade. And so they'll think of them as the same color. And yes, if you give them a color wheel where you've got or a selection of greens in which they're all identical, but one is very, very slightly different, then then they can easily tell the difference. But you give the same color wheel to one of us, and I could show it to you now, or we could watch my video if you like tracing these together. Sit down and watch it together.
Well.
Sorry. I should stop saying this. But it's really difficult for us to tell the difference. But in fact, I showed that same color wheel to someone recently who spoke about 4 different languages, and she just instantly found the different color. No trouble. And then I rotated it around a couple of times into different positions, and she just found it instantly again. Couldn't believe it because I still can't see it, and I know where it is.
But it can vary from men to women as well.
Yes, that's like that's a sexual genetic characteristic because it's the gene for seeing the difference between red and green is on the X chromosome. So if it's failing, men have less because we've only got one X chromosome in each of our cells, right? So so we have less of a chance of getting it right. So a lot of men are red-green colorblind, but there are lots of other more subtle forms of colorblindness and different sensitivities.
I heard that the women being able to tell difference between colours thing is because if women were more likely to be like the berry pickers or whatever, they'd want to sense the difference between ripe and non-ripe. I don't know if that's true.
Mysterious. I think it's a nice thought that a long time ago there was a mammal that just evolved a little gene for being able to see the colour red, because that was a newer gene than the other colours that they were able to see, and that mammal could then spot berries in the forest and maybe spot blood. And then it got a little advantage, and then we all evolved from that mammal.
Hooray.
Maybe it wasn't a mammal. Anyway.
Summary of the question.
Thought that'd be a nicer ending than it was.
So, to provide a summary for all this, I guess reality is very much a human-defined thing. So, what is reality? Who knows?
Who knows? So we have arrived at the end. Points have been allocated by Sam Lee according to a system that none of us understands. Sam, what's the verdict?
Well, you'll be pleased to learn that this week's standout winner is Sophie. Is now Josie, who is now 3% more water than she was at the beginning of today's recording session, having chugged that bottle of Evian. Don't think I don't see these things.
How have you got these figures so precise, Sam?
Well, Matthew, simply by applying the technique of succussion, as you discussed in the mystery midsection today. Little did any of you know that as you were recording the later questions, I was going around having a little succuss, and I have to say congratulations to Josie this week.
Direct access to Josie's biological data.
If you shake Josie, this is what you hear. Thanks.
For now, thanks to Josie Peters,
Au revoir.
Sophie Ward,
Goodbye.
James Wells,
See ya.
Matthew Shribman, that's me, our producer, Sam Lee, and to Unbound for their generosity in hosting and supporting us. You can follow us on social media by searching A Piece of String or String Podcast.
If you'd like to hear more about astrophysics and astronomy, follow me on Twitter and YouTube by searching for Josie A. Peters.
And if you want to hear a little bit more about human biology and just things I find interesting, check me out on Twitter and YouTube at Soph's Notes.
And if you want to learn about all kinds of different scientific curiosities, then you can follow me on social media by searching Science in the Bath or Matthew Shribman.
And if you have a quirky question of your own that you'd like a scientific answer for, then please reach out to us on any of our social media channels.
Thanks for listening. We'll be back again in a fortnight. And as usual, let's never speak of any of this ever again.